Okay, well, I think we're going to go ahead and get going. So, like Sarah said, I think many of you by now know who I am. You've been joining us this week, but just in case not, I'm Holly Honig. I'm Empower Missouri's Policy Director. Again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day today to spend with us for our fourth and final day of our week of action. Just as a reminder for folks who are joining us for the first time today, Empower Missouri's Week of Action is a week each year during the legislative session that we dedicate to honoring our 120 plus year-old mission of our organization, which is convening community members from across the state to eradicate poverty through meaningful policy change. We can't do it alone, and we're just really thrilled to have you all here with us in that mission. Yesterday, we were live in person in the Capitol. About 120 advocates joined us for our day of action. And today, we are going to follow the same agenda that we did on Monday and Tuesday, with having some skill building from Sarah Owsley, our amazing advocacy director. And Sarah's already talked to us about how to communicate about poverty with our lawmakers, researching a bill's impact. And today we're going to talk about ways to stay in touch with your lawmakers and maintain those relationships. And then we're going to transition over to Amber and V, who are our two amazing affordable housing policy managers, to talk to us about the circuit breaker tax credit and ways that we can advocate for getting some relief for our low-income seniors and folks who are living with a disability. And then they'll hand it back over to me, and we'll wrap up the end of the session together and head you off on your way at 1 o'clock. So I think with that, Sarah, I'm going to hand it over to you. It's all yours.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Holly. And thank you everybody for joining us. Like I said, lots of you, I see the same names. We sort of as a staff had this debate, do we think people will come for the day they're interested in? Will they come for all of the days? And it'd be sort of a toss up, but I'm really happy to see a lot of the same names have joined us Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And it's been so nice to spend our week with you and doing this thing that we all care so deeply about and know is so necessary and important. So thank you for making that a priority and spending your lunch hour with us. So today we're going to talk about how to stay in touch with your lawmaker. And we had some good conversations yesterday. If you joined us for in-person, some of you have called your lawmakers this week as part of our virtual actions, emailed them, reached out to them. Some of you, that might be for the first time that you're finding your lawmaker and making those connections. It's important as we wrap up our week that we remember that this is the beginning. If that was the first time that you called your lawmaker, awesome. Thanks for joining us with that. Right? If you do it regularly, we still also all need to make sure that we are, forming a long-term relationship. It's the goal of a good advocate, and hopefully many of your goals, to become your elected officials' go-to person on the issues you care about. If that's affordable housing, criminal legal reform, or food security, or something else, right? Whatever that issue is, making sure that your lawmaker, when they see bills that come across their desk that say, whatever is going to impact this population, they think oh, I know this person who works at this nonprofit, or oh, my constituent reached out to me about this issue. I need to reach out to them and find out what they have to say about it, or I'm not going to make a decision until I hear from them, right? I think they'll probably reach out. I want to wait and let that happen. So building that relationship takes time. It takes intentionality, just like all of our relationships do. And so today we're going to sort of have some tips about how to do that. Remember that this is a really important part because, as we've discussed, lawmakers have to hear from you. They are going to vote on hundreds of bills each year, and they are not experts in all of those spaces, right? It would be unrealistic to expect lawmakers to make their own decisions on every issue without the input of other folks. And when it comes to issues of poverty, it's our goal that we, our network, our folks, you on this call, are those experts that are in relationship with that lawmaker, in that lawmaker's ear about these issues. Remember also that lawmakers are regular folks, and particularly when you're dealing with your state senator and your state rep, these are folks who live in your communities. They might have shared experiences you can connect with. They might have kids in the same schools or school districts or the public school system that you have familiarity with. They might attend a local church. They might, have passes at the community center and hang out at the swimming pool or whatever, right? The coffee shop. You're going to run into these lawmakers as you get to know them more. And so we don't take that opportunity to like, great, here's a chance for a 1 hour lobby visit, but it sure is nice, right? To when I walk into Starbucks and run into my lawmaker, or into my local coffee shop and run into my lawmaker, he hangs out there pretty regularly. I can see him, I can, say, hey, tell him I'm going to see him next week in the Capitol or whatever. So remembering that these are just like regular folks. So state level elected officials are usually just like people who live in their community and care deeply about it. And so they are accessible in that way. So keeping that in mind and looking for spaces where we can connect with folks is really important. The next slide says basically, we hope that if you joined us in the Capitol yesterday, or if you have spent time with your lawmaker, any other time, right? Previously in the session, if you're going to do it after this week, etc. Anytime you get individualized attention from a lawmaker, that you send them a thank you card. It can, be sort of, look at what that experience was like. Hey, I got 5 minutes with them in an elevator. Probably a quick email to remind them who you are, thank them for their time will be enough. But if they made an appointment with you and sat down and spent time and looked at your research, etc., sending a nice handwritten thank you card is super important. It's impactful. It keeps your name top of mind. It helps them remember. And frankly, right, these are usually politicians who want those fancy thank you cards spread around their office, so that when other constituents come to see them, they can, sort of say that I have this community relationship, this community connection. So sending a nice thank you card, and you will often see it up in their office if you come later on. It does not have to be super flowery. It does not have to be an exaggeration, right? We're appreciating them for their time and their energy. We want to remind them of the thing that we came to talk to them about. But we also do not necessarily need to, grovel and over appreciate, right? This is part of their job. They're doing their job well by meeting with you. And so just a quick couple sentences is completely appropriate. Totally fine, etc. Make sure that you leave contact info with that, so they know how to reach you, if that's including your business card or just write in your email address, etc., so that they can reach out to you. And if you talked about any research, or they might have asked you a question that you were unprepared for, so your leave behinds didn't include, this report or this one pager, make sure you send that on as well. With the thank you card is appropriate. You can also sort of send that in advance in an email and send a handwritten thank you, whatever it is. If you committed to give them something or to follow up with something, make sure that you, follow through on that and are sure to actually do it. That helps build that level of trust with them. The next way is to sort of like pay attention to what they're doing, meet them where they are, watch what they're doing, not in a like scary, terrifying way, right? But remember that a lot of the votes they take, though not all of them, are public. They are recorded. We can find how they voted on particular issues. You can see how they voted in committees that they are a member of. And when there are, roll call votes, et cetera, where people enter their names, you can find all of that information. We're going to send these slides out. So I did not think it was useful to look on the Senate website or the House website. But here is information about how you find how a particular person voted a particular session. There is not a way, to my knowledge, maybe it exists on Fast Democracy or somewhere, where you can look up the individual lawmaker and where they voted. Almost always you will have to go to the bill and check the bill records. And that's fine, right? That'll work. We can get there eventually. So there's some information about how to do that. Almost all legislative tracking services can provide that for you. It's also available on the House and Senate website. So particularly when there are bills that you care about or that you hear about, find out how your lawmaker voted. If they voted a way that you are glad about, send them a thank you email, give them a call, appreciate them a little bit for that vote, particularly if it's something where they may have faced some political pressure. It really does a lot to sort of tell them, like, your constituents are watching, agencies in your district are watching, thank you so much for supporting people. If they voted a way that you do not like, we don't want to meet them with some, aggression or threats or anything like that. Just like kind of follow up and also say, I'm disappointed to see you voted this way. I'd love to meet with you and talk to you about why you made that vote, or, I hope next time you'll make a different choice, something like that. Make sure that, you're paying attention to what they do and they know that you're paying attention to what they do. Um, Finally, remember that lawmakers work for the entire year. They're elected for the full calendar year, even if they are only in session from January to May. So many lawmakers send out emails to a mailing list with legislative reports. Sometimes you can find that information on their House or Senate website. Sometimes you sort of have to like Google them, right? But many lawmakers really want to stay in touch with their constituents, and they'll send like a wrap up throughout the session. Sign up for that mailing list, interact with those when they talk about issues you care about, email them back about that, etc. They also will probably advertise things like town halls that they'll participate in, places you can find them during the kind of off, not during session time. Show up to those places, have conversations with them, remind them that you're here, remind them that you are, engaged in legislative advocacy, and that you're kind of, counting on them to do the work that you need them to do. That can happen the entire calendar year. As I've said, it's particularly effective to meet with lawmakers in the summer and fall because they're starting to sort of solidify what the next legislative session is going to look like for them. When you meet with them during session, you're almost always going to be talking to them about bills that have already been sponsored, things you already want them to do, really like tangible things. That's what we've been learning about this week, right? Bills that are already sponsored or moving, and what we want those folks to do in response to those issues. But when you meet with them in the summer and the fall, you can talk to them about issues that are not necessarily legislative priorities right now, right? I can say to my lawmaker, like, I continue to see this problem. Can we work on this, issue together? Down, really significant big statewide problems and more hyper-local issues. Lawmakers like to hear from their constituents. They like to know what's going on. And that summer and fall is a little quieter for them, a little easier to grab them. And you can probably do it in district, right? You can probably do it where they live, where you live, meet them at a coffee shop, meet them at your nonprofit, invite them into that space, etc. Follow them on social media. Almost all of them have some level of relationship with social media or level of engagement there. Make sure that you're sending reports, data, research, things that come up that seem like they might be useful. Send those over via email to their offices, to their personal emails, etc. Whatever might be useful to them. If your organization issues an annual report, make sure that they get a copy of that as well. Put them on your mailing list so that they're hearing what's going on with your organization. And finally, like I said, invite them to events at your agency. You can set up a more formal, site visit. This is an opportunity to see all the things we do, and we're going to let you meet some of our clients. We're going to show you this aspect of our programming. Like, this is about you. But you can also invite your lawmaker to public events that you're having that are not necessarily catered towards that lawmaker, and you're maybe not inviting them to speak, right? It's still important that they see the things that you're doing in the communities that you're doing them in, and have that opportunity to engage with their constituents as well in those spaces. And so sometimes it might be appropriate to offer them, some time at a microphone and ask them to speak. And sometimes it's not. And you should still invite them, even if it's not a time that you're going to give them a microphone or any space there. So remember that that is totally fine. You'll want to watch when those lawmakers are also candidates. It's a little trickier to make sure, right, if you invite a lawmaker that is running for office actively right now, you also need to invite anybody they might be running against. But when it's not that election season, and really when it's not even like kind of close, right, to that election season, it's totally fine to invite your lawmaker into your space that is not electioneering, that is not anything. And you do not actually even need to make sure that you represent, that you invite representatives from whatever, both parties or any parties. when it's not election season and that's your elected official, you can invite them. That is not any issue with your C3 status at all. And so it's a good idea to make sure to do that as well. And that's the end for me. Holly, I'm not sure if I'm sending it over to V and Amber, if I'm sending it back to you, but I'm all done. Thank you so much.
Yep, we are actually all ready for V and Amber both. I think V, you're gonna start us off. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Holly. So just a quick introduction. I am V. Sanchez. I'm one of two affordable housing policy managers at Empower Missouri. And we're just going to jump into talking about what the circuit breaker tax credit is. So there are tools that jurisdictions use to help certain low-income seniors as well as individuals with disabilities to stay stably housed. And the way that works is they can apply for a credit to get back a certain amount of property tax that they've paid for that year or rent costs. And the reason it's called a property tax circuit breaker is because it's very much like the electrical devices that we have in our homes. They'll shut the power off to prevent the circuits from overloading. And in the same way, the circuit breaker tax credits prevent property taxes from overloading a family's budget by shutting off the property taxes once those have exceeded a certain share of a household's income. So currently there are 31 states that currently provide, some type of circuit breaker tax credit, and 22 of those extend the credit to renters as well, in recognition that property owners often pass that cost along to the tenants through rent increases. So Missouri is one of those 22 states. And if I could have the next slide, please. Thank you. So here is some information about Missouri's circuit breaker tax credit program. It's actually called the Missouri Property Tax Credit Claim, but it works in the same way. It helps many low-income seniors as well as individuals with disabilities just stay in their homes, stay stably housed over decades, really, since it was established in the 70s, by allowing them again to just apply for that credit based on the real estate taxes that they've paid in or the rent that they've paid for that year. And you can kind of see some of the eligibility guidelines, as well as, credit amounts, et cetera. And next slide. So there are some, improvements that could be made to Missouri's circuit breaker tax credit. A couple of issues that we've found is that Missouri's doesn't actually automatically adjust for inflation. And the last time, credit limits as well as income limits have been adjusted was all the way in 2008. So that was quite a while ago. Financial realities are really different now. Just to kind of give you an example. So in order to receive the full credit amount, and remember, this was set in 2008. One household had to make $14,300 or less. Well, $14,300 in 2008 is equivalent to over $20,000 in 2023. You can see that that is a huge difference, right? But even though, decades have passed and money just doesn't stretch as far as it did back then, the eligibility limits still remain the same. So there's still $14,300. So what inflation, right? A package of ground beef costs the same as it did last month, but it's going to be a lot smaller. So, the result of not having inflation built into a program like this is that over time, fewer and fewer low-income households are actually going to be able to qualify for this really, really needed program. And, you know, for example, in 2021, the average credit that households received was only $602. And while that is still really helpful, again, $600 just does not go as far as it did in 2008. And what we're seeing is increasingly, you know, the tax credit amount is becoming lower and lower if a family or a household can even qualify for that credit to begin with. And it's just not enough to prevent our neighbors from becoming homeless due to things like foreclosure sales, as well as, of course, rent increases that can lead to eviction. So according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, let's see that. I've got a couple of, there we go. We've got a couple of different tables here. On the chart on the left, you'll see that inflation has actually increased by 55% over the 20-year period from 96 to 2016. And we know, you know, inflation continues to rise every year from 2008 to now. You'll see on the right side. Well, actually, we've seen that increase by about 43%. And on the right side of your screen, you'll see that Missouri actually experienced some of the highest inflation rates in the country. And that's why we're talking about the circuit breaker tax credit. So what can be done about it? There are a couple of solutions on the horizon that we really want to advocate on and make sure everybody knows. So HB or House Bill 1134, pardon me, that is sponsored by Representative Matheson. And then Senate Bill 15, which is sponsored by Senator Mike Sierpo. So both of these do address, you know, some of the big issues that we're having with the circuit breaker tax credit. Both of them placed side by side here, you can see that they would expand the eligibility limits. On the House side, it would increase the maximum tax credit amount. While on the Senate side, it would keep that the same, but both would build in annual adjustments for inflation. Both would ensure, you know, the future policy impact of the circuit breaker tax credit continues on in the future. And we want to see both of these be successful and get to the finish line. As of right now, Senate Bill 15 is up on the informal Senate calendar for language or bill perfection. And then House Bill 1134 has been referred to committee, and looks like it was heard. I think Amber, who's going to be on here later, can kind of tell you a little bit more specifically about what's happened since then. But now that we've gone over what the circuit breaker tax credit is,
oh my gosh,
what's wrong with it, and you know what these two bills, the House bill and the Senate bill, would do to fix them, we're going to go ahead and switch gears, hand it over to Amber Smith, and she's going to focus on, you know, helping us exercise those advocacy muscles.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so thank you to Sarah for going over how to stay in touch with your lawmaker for our day of action, or rather our virtual day of action. And thank you to V for going over a little bit about the circuit breaker bills that we have been doing some educating on for you all today. So my piece and my role in this is to talk with you all about marrying those two. So how do you stay in touch with your lawmaker? There's a number of different ways, like Sarah mentioned. So if you would go to the next slide, we're going to put some things into action here.
Sorry, we're having a little technical difficulties getting the slide to advance, Amber. So if you want to just
That's
maybe
okay.
keep talking, and we'll try to get it working on our end.
Yeah, sure, no worries. While you do that, I'm going to go talk a little bit more about the two bills. So there are two bills that we had talked about and mentioned. SB 15, like she said, is on the informal Senate calendar, which means that this bill is ready to be heard by the entire chamber, and it is high up on that list. So we hope to see some action on that soon. And then HB 1134 is another bill, like I said, that we are following. Oh, great. Thank you, Sarah. That we are also following, that we're going to have some action on today. And this moved out of committee, and we are waiting for it to be voted on, or rather, I'm sorry, we're waiting for the committee members to vote yes or no on moving this out of the committee and moving this to the formal floor. So if we can go, I think, go back one slide. So the reason we're doing this is to advocate effectively. Talking to your lawmakers, like Sarah said, is really key to making sure that not only your individual voice is heard, but your voice as an organization is heard. One of the things that we always talk to lawmakers about, and one of the things that we think is super important, is making sure that you are talking about the underserved communities that you maybe work with on a direct and daily basis, and making sure that their voices are getting heard in a way that is effective and respectful. So for us, advocacy is really important to making a meaningful difference in the way that lead to making big changes. So moving from an individual level to that group level. So we can go back, or go forward rather, to that next slide. So in the chat, you will see a form, and Holly, I don't know if you can click on that form and we can do a bit of share screening here today. Perfect. Thank you. All right, so this is a form that we have created to make one of our asks of you all today a little bit easier. So the ask that we have of you all to put both of the things that you have learned today into action is to fill out a call to action for us. So if you actually scroll back up quickly. So if you'll notice here at the top, we are asking the committee that is going to be voting on this bill to vote it yes out of committee. So we are asking this special committee on tax reform, their members, to vote yes on this. And V mentioned a little bit about this bill, but obviously, as we know, among older adults, poverty is linked to many increased risks. And so this bill will do a lot to keep money in seniors and those with disabilities pocket. And so if you scroll back down, perfect, keep going a little bit more. Perfect. Okay. So if you look here, this may pre-fill depending on your computer settings, but you are able to fill out your information and your address. And the really neat thing about the program that we use is that it automatically selected all of the members who are part of this committee. So it's not work that you have to do. It's not research that you have to do on your own. So when you fill this out, you can scroll down on the screen where it says personalize your subject. And again, that section and the section that says personalize your message is pre-filled out with information that we've added to make the process a little bit more easier for you all, to make that, to do the call to action directly today. So as I think Sarah or Holly is adding here, you can personalize this message however you like that makes sense to you, and represents not only the community that you live and work in, but those that you work with, that you're doing direct service with. So like V had mentioned, this bill was heard, and we provided testimony on this bill on April 4th, which is a few days ago. And so the committee members are already familiar with this bill. They know what's in it because they heard testimony from us. And so what we are doing is prompting them to take action. And that's really what a call to action is. And this can be in support, or this can be in opposition in regard to this particular bill. This is in support. So once you have everything filled out to your liking, you can hit submit there on the screen. And this will automatically send to the committee members who will be voting yes on this. And that will probably happen on Monday or Tuesday next week. So this is the perfect time to do that. So I'm going to pause and give you all, let's see, three minutes to write your own or customize your own message if you like, but otherwise just send that call to action directly. And if you have any questions, do let us know while you're filling out the information, but let's give everybody a few minutes to do this on their own. And then we can go back to the slideshow. Holly, if you can go back to our slide presentation, that is the slide that is labeled advocacy, we will continue on our path here. Perfect. Thank you so much. So I wanted to go back just quickly to mention, a little bit more about advocacy and the reason that this is so important. Effective advocacy enables all of us to shape thank you, Jonathan, for letting us know, the public debate on the issues that are important to not only you, but the organizations and the mission that you work with and for. And again, it ensures that that community that is underserved have a voice in the policies that impact their lives. Many times the most powerful, thank you, Julie, many times some of the most powerful advocacy come from many people making a meaningful difference in small ways that lead up to something huge, right? So, and we saw this this week during our virtual week days of action, as well as our in-person advocacy day yesterday. For those of you who were able to come, that's what we did. We came together as a group and talked to our legislators about not only issues that were important to us at Empower Missouri, but issues that you all care deeply about who do this work daily, or are in the field making working with clients. So the goal really is we want the Missouri legislature to see the broad coalition of people in Missouri who care not only about basic needs, but about fairness in general. And that's really the key to effective advocacy. So that's the reason we do these things. That's the reason we do call to actions. That's the reason we do phone calls to our legislators. I know Sarah's mentioned this previous week that, they may not be experts on the topics that we are. So they need to hear from us. we need to be the ones that they're reaching out to get to hear more about what's happening in Missouri, because they may just not have that breadth of knowledge. So if we can go to the next slide. Perfect. So the final call to action that we have today is not something that we're going to do together, but we are going to do some advocacy around SB 15. This is the other bill that involves circuit breaker property taxes. This one was sponsored by Senator Searpoy. And so what we are asking of you all is, after today's call, after we're done here, we would like you all to either call or email the senator's office and just thank him for sponsoring this bill. I think too often we do not our senators and representatives do not hear thank you from the people that they represent, because we are usually asking them to do things or not do things, as it were, depending on our organization's mission and our own personal interests. And I think this is something Christine went over in her virtual day of action too, around food security. They are so grateful to hear from you all and want to hear that thank you, because sometimes this can be thankless work. So the last action that we have for you all today is just calling his office and just saying, hey, thanks. We really do appreciate your work on this. And we see that you're listening. And you can do that via phone. There's a phone number listed here, and we've also put his email in the chat. I know sometimes it can be a little scary to call up a senator or representative. So if that's something that is scary, you are more than welcome to email them instead. So that is, like I said, something that we will ask you all to do after our call today. And Holly has also put that phone number in the chat as well. Okay, if we can go to the next slide, please. All right, so the Affordable Housing Coalition meets the second and fourth Friday of each month. And our next call is April 14th from 2 to 3. And we're going to put a direct link in the chat here for you all to join our coalition. There is no need to register for our coalition, so feel free to join as you are able. And then after legislative session ends in May, we will drop down to meeting once a month in the summer, leading up to the next session that starts in January. And then Holly, I don't know if I am turning it over to you to do our final bit of slides here.
Yeah, I sure can. I think before I kind of dig into what's coming next, does anyone have any questions for Amber or for V or for Sarah?
And again, feel free to come off mute, or you can type your question, comment in the chat.
Okay, well, it looks like we're good. So please join us on April 14th from noon to 1 over the lunch hour for our April Friday forum. And you'll hear from Empower Missouri about land banks and land trusts as our topic for April. Let's see, I'm also going to include, again, many of you have already heard me talk about the importance of feedback. Empower Missouri would like to continue improving sessions like this. And so I've just put a link for our session survey in the chat box. So I would love it if you would take a moment. There's only 10 questions. It's a very simple survey, but we would love to hear from you on how today's session went for you. And then also super exciting, we have our dates secured for our annual Anti-Poverty Summit. This will be November 6th and 7th. We're doing it in Columbia this year. So please just mark your calendars. We will be sending additional details as we develop those out to all of our Empower Missouri advocates and coalition members as well. And I think with that, that is a wrap for today. Thank you so much for those of you who joined us throughout the week and today. It's been a wonderful, amazing week to convene our community members and really roll up our sleeves and get to work in the Capitol and around these important issue areas. And we value you and your being here with us so very much. So thanks for everything.